Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey. Welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is emotional hunger. Discover what you're truly craving. I am so excited to bring you this episode today because some of these lessons that I'm going to be sharing with you are unique to my private coaching community and have never really been talked about outside of there. So I'm hoping that unless you are already working with me, this is going to be new information for you. So I'm really excited for you to hear this episode since it's going to change your mindset around your cravings forever, just like it does for all of my coaching students. All right, so let's dive in. Since you're listening to a podcast called Crush Cravings with Confidence, I'm going to assume that you're struggling with food. And that when a food thought pops into your head, it's because you think that you're craving that particular food. Like when I was struggling with emotional eating, which I did for about 30 years, I thought that when ice cream, chips, chocolate, or Taco Bell popped into my head, I assumed that it was because I was craving that particular food, or that I was addicted to those particular foods, or that I needed those particular foods to calm me down since I was an emotional eater. So I basically convinced myself that I was out of control, I was bad, or I couldn't be trusted since I really felt absolutely powerless to stop myself from eating when a food thought popped into my head. And this was so confusing since I certainly knew better. I mean, after all, I was a personal fitness trainer and a nutrition and triathlon coach. So I knew better, but I just couldn't do better. And most people who are listening here have probably been on, a diet or two. So you probably know nutrition yourself. It's not, that much rocket science anymore. We kind of know the difference between a chemically processed food like a Dorito and, an apple, right? Like we all know the difference, but you just can't do any better, not long term anyways. So there seems to be some kind of emotional mismatch. And I also thought that I had to listen and believe all of my thoughts. I didn't yet know what I'm about to teach you. And so I didn't yet know how to discover what was going on underneath the food in a place that I now call my broken heart island, which is a cool little term that we use only in Crush That Food Thing. And I'll explain that to you shortly. So just sit back and enjoy this episode. So before I took a journey of self-discovery, which ultimately led me to crush my food thing for good, I thought that I just had to believe all of my thoughts. I thought that, since I was thinking them, like, why wouldn't I believe all of my thoughts? And if I was telling myself something like, hey, you're craving something sweet or salty or crunchy, like, why wouldn't I just believe them? So let me ask you a question. Do you believe all of your thoughts as being the whole truth and nothing but the truth too? Do you ever question your thoughts? I hope you're getting a little curious right now, Because you see, back when I was believing all of my thoughts, I was stuck in a vicious cycle, a cycle that always seemed to lead me to the same place: shame, regret, disappointment, and guilt. Oh gosh, guilt. For me, that was the big kicker. It was always about the guilt, and it was literally never ending. I remember saying things like, if I just didn't have to feel guilty about X, Y, and Z, and food was 1,000% part of this, then I could feel, better about myself. And so it was always this I'll be happy when, and guilt was definitely a root of it. But I just thought that I was helpless to do anything about it. Like I just figured like that was it and it's just how I felt. And I didn't question anything because I didn't think I could change my thoughts. So there I spun round and round and round like a little dog chasing my tail. So I had been using food as one of the ways that I felt guilty about myself. Gosh, since I was a teenager. And interestingly enough, since I was always on a diet since I was a teenager, it didn't even matter if I had one cookie or 10, since anything that was off of my insanely strict diet was grounds for guilt. But I never put the two and two together because I always assumed that the craving was about food and I always thought that food was the problem. And it never dawned on me that I could have just as easily been craving the guilt and just been using food as a sure way to get to it. I mean, those two things always did go hand in hand. So, why would I think that it was always the food? How come I didn't think about the possibilities that it actually could be about the guilt? Hmm, interesting. Do I have your attention now? I hope so. So think about it. How many times have you told yourself, that's it, I'm never eating chocolate again? Or, screw it, I'll eat the chocolate and I'll just start over again on Monday. For me, that was kind of like a weekly mantra. It was like silly. Like I told myself all of these things that were on rinse and repeat. And I kind of acted like they were a new thought. Like I'll start over again on Monday somehow or another, let me off the hook or gave me the get out of jail free pass. But I didn't like question the fact that I thought that on a weekly basis. It happened around Thursday every single week. And I never questioned that I was telling myself this same old excuse over and over. I was just like, oh, start over again on Monday. That's a good idea. Like I never questioned my thought ever because it was so easy for me to blame the food and my busy schedule and the stress of daily life. And it was so easy in some ways to stay stuck because it's what I knew. It's what I was familiar with. So stuck, and more stuck just was comfortable in some, you know, some strange way, right? So my thoughts led me to the same place again and again and again. And it was so confusing. So, what I've come to learn through taking a journey of self discovery is that keeping me confused was actually all part of the setup to keep me stuck forever. Stuck convincing myself that I couldn't handle stressful situations without using food to calm me down, or stuck with the fact that I felt like I had to say yes to everything and to everyone and do all sorts of things that made me feel really, really exhausted. So that way I would need sugar as a pick me up from all of the overwhelm. Yep. It wasn't until I recognized that I didn't have to believe everything I was thinking that I could start to question my own intuition, my own integrity, my own decisions that I was making. And that's when I really learned about something called subconscious intentions. And that is how I learned about my broken heart island girl, which is what I'm going to teach you today. So in my Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, I teach you that you can have two different types of intentions. One is a conscious intention, and the other is a subconscious intention. Subconscious intentions are the intentions that lie below the level of your conscious awareness. Because these intentions are below the level of your conscious awareness, they are invisible. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so Coach Lisa, if they're invisible, how am I ever going to find them? And well, that's why I want to teach you this, because I'm going to share how I discovered how to be able to see my subconscious intentions with awareness. Kind of like one of those like decoder glasses that I was able to put on so that I could see these invisible intentions with a conscious level of clarity, which is really kind of cool. So, when I first started my self discovery classes that I started taking back in 2015 with a wonderful company, and you can look them up, they're called Your Infinite Life Coaching Company. And I always like to give them credit because they really did help me open up my mind to a new level of awareness. But what I learned in these coaching classes that I took was the concept of conscious intentions and subconscious intentions. But since those classes were not about emotional eating, it never dawned on me to apply the knowledge that I was learning about conscious intentions and subconscious intentions to my eating habits, which had been erratic for decades, like and crazy for decades. I mean, I knew that I struggled with food like for years and years and years. But again, I always blamed the food. I had tons of food sensitivities, digestive issues. I told them, I have a nervous stomach. Like that was like a common thing that I told myself. Um, from the 4 colonoscopies that I had before I was 40, mind you. I wasn't even supposed to have one colonoscopy, much less 4, but I always had this crazy stomach. So I was told, you have IBS. Like, I get it. I had a lot of inflammation. I had a lot of gut issues. I mean, a lot of that stuff came from the fake foods that I was eating and all the chemicals I was putting into my body and starving myself. And like a lot of that did throw my body like out of whack. I get it, right? Um, so I also had this theory that I knew myself so well and that I just couldn't be trusted around food. And that if it was in the house, it was going into my mouth. Like, that's it. And I didn't think that that could change. Like, I thought that part was just me. So even though I was taking all these self-discovery classes and learning about conscious intentions and subconscious habits and all this stuff, I never applied it to the food. And the only thing that I thought that I could do was to control this habit with restricting myself and just accept that I was probably going to be, screwing up like a couple times a week and that my stomach issues, like I just learned how to deal with them. So every once in a while, I'd shell out a few $100 and go to the naturopath and try and get my gut biome back on track kind of thing. But then it would be followed up so closely with some kind of a crazy diet or some kind of restrictive meal plan that like I'd throw my body out of whack before I could turn around in between all of the binges where, I put lethal doses of sugar and crap into my body, which probably didn't help anything, right? So these solutions that I came up with to cleanse my body or to go on some, crazy meal fast, whatever plan, those things were on rinse and repeat. That as I started to learn more about conscious intentions and subconscious intentions, I started to think about the food things and like my habits. And then I decided to get curious about my thoughts and my intentions and how that came out through my actions. Like what was I actually doing? So let me explain the way that subconscious intentions were described to me. So think about subconscious intentions and conscious intentions as being like a huge iceberg. Now, you know an iceberg, right? The little tip of the iceberg's above the waterline, and the huge portion of the massive iceberg is below the waterline. No, this isn't, new information. You can just go look up um, the difference between intentions on the internet. And you'll pull up a diagram. You'll pull up an actual diagram of an iceberg, and it'll show you how your conscious intentions are on the top and your subconscious intentions are underneath. And if you ever taken like a Psych 101 class, like this is pretty much standard information. But the thing is that you can know this information and you can recognize that like 10 to 30% of your intentions are conscious, while 70 to 90% remain unconscious underneath the level of your conscious awareness. So these lessons that I learned, like they weren't that new, but I never applied them to my food thing. Like I just kept it separate. And it just didn't apply to me. It never dawned on me to apply that same, you know, pretty simple psychological information to my food thing. Like I just never put two and two together. And I had heard about mindful eating and all that stuff, and none of it seemed to matter because it was like knowing it and doing it, there seemed to be a gap, which I now know to be what's called the knowing and doing gap. And this is something that I teach about in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System. But more important than you just knowing the information, I will teach you how to apply it to your own life, not just standard information that's like one and done, like one size fits all. When I work with my students, it literally is a one size fits one, period, end of story. So another lesson that I learned in my self-discovery training was that I didn't have to believe all of my thoughts. Now, that information was actually new to me. I just, again, thought that my thoughts were just coming at me and like, I don't know, I never really thought about it. And so knowing now that some of my thoughts were the very same thoughts that were meant to keep me stuck, and being able to apply that information to recognize, okay, well, hang on a minute. Some of my thoughts are actually coming from beneath the surface of my conscious awareness. And those thoughts that were coming from beneath the surface of my conscious awareness were actually automatic. And those thoughts were meant to keep me stuck. I learned the way that you can actually reveal your subconscious intentions, meaning being able to become aware of it, like I said, taking those invisible intentions and making them visible so that you can actually see them, almost like you have your own secret little pair of decoder glasses, is to first look at the results that you're getting that are mismatched from what you say you want. And so the only way to discover your subconscious intentions is through looking at your results. Wow. So wait a minute. So the results that I'm getting when I eat that are mismatched from what I say I want are actually revealing my subconscious intentions. So hang on. When I say that I want to calm myself down, and so then I go and eat, but then I'm getting a feeling of being disgusted with myself, my subconscious intention was to feel and to think and to be disgusted with myself. That was my intention. Oh my goodness. That's interesting. So when I say that I want to satisfy a craving for certain foods, like I just have a craving for sweets or chips, and then I eat it, and then I feel frustrated with myself that I ate the whole bag, or I didn't have enough willpower or self-control to stop myself, and then I'm mad at myself. So wait a minute. I ended up being frustrated and mad at myself. That was my intention? Huh, interesting. So when I say that I want to give myself a little indulgence, or like I did something good and I'm so proud of myself and I deserve this little treat to eat, and I end up feeling disappointed and guilty because I went overboard again, that was a subconscious intention. I wanted that. That's what I was actually craving. Wow. And then I get to judge myself and think, the heck's wrong with you? Why are you so messed up? Why did you do that? And then I get to be mad at myself. Yeah, I was doing so good. Oh, now I gotta start all over again. I'll never get this straight. I'm hopeless. I'm a failure, etc., etc., etc. All of that all of that was my subconscious intentions, my subconscious cravings. And so everything that I was doing was like one big subconscious habit. And when I learned this, that was like a bam, like a wow. I was shocked. When did satisfying craving for guilt and shame and disappointment and regret and sadness, like when did that become a habit? Yep. That's I hope that you're kind of like dun dun dun. Like I hope that you're just sitting there with your mouth open going like, wait a minute. This is an actual subconscious habit that and it's like, when did this all start? And it is a setup. It's a setup for a subconscious craving. It's a sneaky setup and it is subconscious. You don't know you're doing it, but it's happening. And it's happening right in front of your closed eyes. And so, as long as you can put on your decoder glasses and learn how to see this, how to really learn how to navigate around the sneaky subconscious intentions, which I have a whole nother um, story and way to be able to see with your conscious intentions, like what it is that you're doing. Like I have a whole nother training on this. Um, but these sneaky subconscious intentions are very, very visible as long as you know how to find them. And then once you can bring those sneaky little subconscious intentions to your conscious awareness, this problem is fixable. I have fixed the problem. I have led hundreds of other women to fix the problem. It is fixable. And so, what I'm teaching you today is a little bite sized glimpse of what the future can hold for you if you learn how to crush your food thing, just like all of my other students do. So, this is how I figured it out. And this is step one, and you cannot pass go until you get through step. First, you have to convince yourself that you're not actually craving food. And I know I just spent the last 15 minutes telling you that it's not about the food, telling you about your results, telling you about your conscious habits, your subconscious habits, your everything great. But if there's a subconscious version of you that I call your Broken Heart Island girl, that is allowing you to listen to this training while she is sitting there with her hands over her ears and being like, la, 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 la. It will not matter what you learn if she still convinces you that it's about the food. You will just keep going back through the same old cycle over and over and over again. And now knowing this information might make you feel even worse because now you're like, well, now I really know about these conscious intentions and subconscious intentions, all this stuff, and I still can't figure it out. There's reason. There's a part of you that wants to still keep believing it's about the food. And that'll intrigue you with advertisements and your Facebook feed and your emails. And so if you're still looking for the next new recipe or the next new pill to take or the next new injection from your doctor, or if you're still doing that, just know that there's a part of you that does not want to pass through step one. Because if you keep thinking it's about food, you're not going to be ready to apply the method that I want to teach you long term. And in that case, I suggest that you go back to listen to episode 18, where I talk about levels of awareness and what type of emotional eater you are. And you can also go into the show notes and grab a free phone call with me. It's called a Food Freedom Call. And we can personally talk about this because I know that you want to change. I know you want to understand this in a different way. And yet you're the only one thinking in your own mind. And whether you think you can or you think you can't change, you'll be right. So I do want to pause for a minute and validate that as you start to give up the thought that this might not be about the food, you might also be feeling a little freaked out because blaming the food has kept you safely stuck for decades, safely stuck. Because when you blame the food, you never have to address the root cause of the problem, which is exactly what the root cause of the problem wants. By the way, the root cause of the problem is also your subconscious intention. Like those two things are the same. All right, so getting back to step one, if you don't get through step one, none of the other steps will work because if you keep blaming the food, you will always get to blame the food, which means that you're gonna have to keep coming up with reasons to blame the food, which is gonna have you going in circles. And you'll also be able to come up with a lot of excuses like, I'm just a sugar addict. I know myself so well. I just can't be trusted around food. And you'll also convince yourself that fixing the root cause of the problem is for other people, but for you, it's truly about the food. So if you keep telling yourself that it's about the food, just know that you're going to keep getting more proof that for you, it's about the food. And you're going to keep telling yourself, other people, it might not be about the food, but for me, I know it is. And so just kind of hear yourself talking and see if you can start to expand your mind to ask yourself, do I want to keep believing this? And you can write this down. I don't have to believe everything I'm thinking because some of my thoughts are the very same thoughts that are meant to keep me stuck. So just make sure that you are aware of what it is that you're telling yourself and what direction that's going to take you in. All right. So once we've gotten you through step one, we can move on to step two. And you've agreed to get your thoughts about food out of your head. So now we can start to investigate the root cause of the problem. In Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, and I've shared this already a little bit in this training, we talk about a version of you that's called your Broken Heart Island Girl. Now, I don't expect you to remember that. People get it, mixed up all the time. They're like, that island thing, what do you, the girl? I don't know what you're talking about, Lisa. And I know that that can sound confusing right at the beginning here. But once you really understand who she is, you will be able to embrace learning about her in a very open-minded sort of way. So your Broken Heart Island Girl is a younger version of yourself who's had her heart broken a time or two, but it didn't have to even be something like tremendously traumatic. I get a lot of people that come to me and they're like, Lisa, I had a great childhood, nothing's wrong. I didn't have any trauma. And then I get other people who are like so hyper focused on the trauma that they're like, this happened to me. And that's the only thing I can think about. And so I want you to kind of land in a really safe place with knowing that your Broken Heart Island Girl, there's many versions of her, and it can go anywhere from a 5-year-old who got dropped off at kindergarten, who felt completely like freaked out, to somebody who was, I don't know, 11 and, somebody just was like, they're getting a little pudgy. Or for a 25-year-old who, suddenly is looking at her young life and suddenly becomes really freaked out and terrified that she's either made like a huge mistake in something or she's about to make a huge mistake or she doesn't know what to do, like real, panicky survival stuff. So all of these experiences can create what's called a limiting belief. And your Broken Heart Island Girl is full of limiting beliefs. Because at those times in your life where you felt like your heart broke off just a little tiny bit, or you got surprised by something where you just feel like you were heading in one direction and suddenly the rug was pulled out from under you and you weren't expecting what was going to happen, or you weren't expecting your response to what was going to happen, or what did happen. You just didn't know how to handle it in any other way. And then maybe later on, you got mad at yourself for handling it in the way that you did, or you felt like there was a circumstance that you just really weren't prepared for. You can really feel like you did something wrong or someone else did something wrong to you and feels really like your heart might have gotten broken into pieces. I get a lot of people who tell me they're like, I just feel broken, which by the way, really isn't a thing. Your heart doesn't get broken, like open into pieces, but what actually does happen is a piece of your heart does get broken off and it gets broken off into a little piece. And then that little piece gets broken closed. And on that little closed piece of your heart that's broken, there is a version of you that is as mature as she was the day that that specific event occurred. And again, it could range from like mega trauma, like, I don't know, when my dad passed, he died when I was 8 and it was sudden. It was just like one day it was there and one day it wasn't, and then everything changed, right? That's like, that's severe trauma, right? But at the same time, I also had stuff that happened at day camp that really wasn't, technically from the, if you're going to have a comparison trauma meter, was not traumatic. And yet that created still a broken heart island girl. So uh, once that little piece of your heart is broken and then it breaks closed, there's a version of you that's emotionally frozen and closed off from the rest of your whole heart. And that really can be why you can start to use food to betray yourself, because that version of you, she has to be fueled. And what a better way to get a feeling of fear, disappointment, sadness, guilt, resentment, um, just guilt, shame, anything, blame, anything, than to use food. Like food's a really easy way to get to continue to fuel whatever that feeling was that you had at the time that your heart felt like it got broken. And so it's a really easy way for you to be able to accidentally sabotage your best interest without really knowing it, and then kind of go back in and shame and blame, whatever. And especially hard because all of the solutions to this really, it's a damaging thing, or to just go on a diet, then that spins you in circles because now you get to feel bad about yourself again. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy to keep yourself stuck forever. So if you're struggling with emotional eating and you're going on a diet, that's really, 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 really dangerous for you. And I can't iterate that enough. So, once we can help you heal the pieces of your broken heart and address your subconscious intentions, so that way you can really be able to see the results that you're getting that are mismatched from what you say you want, you will quickly be able to identify where you're out of alignment with your integrity. And you will be able to stop using food to subconsciously sabotage your best interest. You will be able to live free for the rest of your life, open, easy, vulnerable, excited, happy. Food will become food that you eat, and feelings will become feelings that you feel. You're no longer going to want to mix up the two. All right. So if you want to learn any more about how to open up the pieces of your broken heart, how to mature that version of yourself that is perhaps stuck in that space, if you're confused about how this looks and how this works and how this will fit into your life, if you feel like you want to learn more about your broken heart island girl or discover your subconscious intentions, go ahead and send me a message. You can DM me on social media, or you can send me an email at lisa@coachlisacallahan.com so that we can talk. We can also always connect on my free women's group called the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group. And if you haven't grabbed one of my free guides, I always have one of them tucked into the show notes. That way you can get into some of my emails and some of my community support that we have. All right. I will talk to you next time. Remember that I always love when you like and subscribe and share these episodes. It would mean the world to me. And I love having you here in the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. And I will see you all next time. Bye for now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.